Today we're going to be doing a follow-up to the 2011 Buick Lucerne transmission removal video we did, and we're going to do an installation. Now if you've made it this far, there's some assumptions I'm going to make in regard to recording every step. If you haven't removed your transmission, see the other video I did, and I'll put a link in the description. I go through every step to remove it. On this video here, I'm going to mainly focus on torque specs to make sure you put this thing back together the correct way. In regard to the prep on the transmission, the only thing I did on this one here, because this is the low mileage used transmission at around 70,000 miles, is I just replaced both of these axle seals. If you never replaced these before, just take a flathead screwdriver and put it on the side of the lip on the axle seal. Very important, you're not going to be hitting against the transmission side. Just deform that lip a little bit, then eventually you should be able to just pop that out. Once you get it popped out, make sure you put your new one on there square. And what I've used over the years is these wheel bearing races where you can find a size that fits perfectly on there and you can gently tap it in place. So that's what we did on both sides there. Then also we're going to transfer over this mount and we're going to torque this to 37 foot-pounds. Then the other thing you need to make sure you do is flush out the transmission cooler and the cooler lines. And I did a separate video on both replacing these transmission cooler lines and also flushing it. So if you're interested in learning how to do that, see the other links in the description. But once you're done with, the prep here and the cooler lines, then we'll go ahead and we'll install this transmission into our vehicle. One other comment, before you install your transmission, or if you're working on an engine like we have over there or a rear differential up here, one thing I always do is I degrease it before I install it. The last thing you want to do is do all this work, whether you're rebuilding a unit or if you're getting a salvage, and put a greasy transmission or engine back in your vehicle. The product I've been using for the last couple installs is this super clean degreaser, and this stuff works awesome. And it's biodegradable, so you don't have to worry about any overspray. All you do is simply spray some of this solution on here, agitate it, and then simply spray it off, and it comes off very easily. Let me show you here real quick on this differential. And I think I have an engine cover over there we'll do as well here real quick to show you how well this stuff works. Right here you can see was a spot I cleaned, and down here I also cleaned this spot, and I left this spot here just to give you an idea. But let me show you here real quick how easily you can get that removed. And Super Clean does make two different versions of this degreaser. So they have this spray over here, and that's the aerosol. I recently cleaned my 16-year-old Weber grill with that aerosol can over there, and it worked awesome. So all you got to do is just spray some of this on there. And depending on what you're working on, sometimes you need to dilute this down a little bit because it is a very powerful cleaner. But on stuff like this, your engine or transmission or your grill, you can do the full strength. So just make sure you're paying attention to the chart that they have. After you let that sit for a couple minutes, we'll just agitate it with one of these detail brushes. And you can already see right there just how much of that grease is coming off of there. And I'll give you an idea here of how dirty that is just by using that towel. So then we'll take some water and we'll hose it off here. And as you can see how quickly that removed a lot of that grease off there. And obviously you can do additional passes or take a little bit more time agitating a little bit, but you can see all the grease down here. It comes off very, very quickly and very easily with this stuff. They also make some other products. They make a wheel cleaner that I recently used as well on my cars. That worked awesome. So I've been very impressed with this Super Clean degreaser and some of their other products as well. And really the biggest thing with this is just make sure you don't let it dry on there. You want to make sure you're agitating it. Yes, it needs to sit for a couple of minutes to work some of that solution in there, but after you let it sit for a couple minutes, agitate it, just spray it off. Just make sure you don't let any of this dry on there, and I guarantee you'll get all the grease off your engine or transmission very easily with this Super Clean. With the vehicle raised up a little bit, it'll give you a little bit more room to slide this transmission onto here. After you get raised up, we'll go ahead and we'll set the transmission in place here. And just again, just as you removed it, make sure you're watching all these wires to get them out of the way. Before you raise this up, just make sure you put a little grease on the torque converter hub here on the end. We will leave this little stopper here holding our torque converter in. Once we get it up a little bit closer there, then we'll remove that. Now that we have it closer up there where we want, we'll go ahead and we'll remove our little form there that's holding in our torque converter. Then what you're looking for is you're looking for those two dowels on the engine. You need to line those up with the transmission. Once those are lined up, push it together, then we'll tighten up the bolts. So right there, we can now see that our dowels line up on this side. It's also lined up on the outside. So as long as you do that and get those dowels lined up, your torque converter should slide into that flex plate hole there. So we'll push them together now. Alright, so after you get those pressed together, and I just kind of hand tightened all of them first, then snugged them up and everything looks good, so then we'll go on the top and we'll start torquing these to spec. Then the torque on these bell housing bolts is going to be 55 foot-pounds. And don't forget about that one on the back as well. And if you remember on the removal video, just needed some long extensions and you should have access. Alright, so there was the 55 foot-pounds on all 6 bell housing bolts. Next, install these transmission to engine bracket bolts. So you have one here, and you have also one on the top. Then you're going to tighten those to 37 foot-pounds. And if you remove this as well, these are also 37 foot-pounds. Alright, so there's the 37. Then if you remove this transmission mount in the back, just go ahead and put this on now, and you can just snug it up. And if you remove this driver's side mount, we're going to put this one back on here, and this one's going to be 52 foot-pounds. Now we're ready to install the subframe, so we'll gently slide it back in place. And just remember, when we remove this, the two on the front, you need to get it pushed all the way back, put them up there first so they get behind that bumper, then we'll be able to raise the back. And just use jack stands and a jack just like we did when we removed it. And just make sure when you're doing this that you don't pinch any wires or any hoses down there while you're raising it. Then to get the back lifted up so we can put it on our jack stands, I'm going to just be using one of these Irwin quick lifts. Then when you get the front lined up, just tighten both of these bolts. Alright, so after you got the front two on there, now again, those aren't tightened up all the way, they're still pretty loose. You're just doing that to help support it. We'll lower the jack, then we'll go in the back, then we'll raise the back up and get those hand tightened as well. Alright, so after you get your subframe in place there, and just pay attention to the mounts, both the front of the engine, the rear of the engine and the transmission mount over there on the driver's side. Just make sure those are lined up. And actually, when I first started raising this, I forgot to put my front one on here because we did replace it. But if you're having issues getting those lined up, pay attention to your motor up top there. Just make sure it's level. If it's not level, it's going to be difficult to get those lined up. But once you get them all lined up and they're all in place, then we're going to go ahead and tighten up all these subframe bolts. So you can have 2 on the front here, then you have 4 in the back. And we need to tighten those to 74 foot-pounds plus an additional 90 degrees. Alright, so there was the 74, then we'll do an additional 90 degrees. Alright, so then just do the same thing on the other side. Then tighten these engine mount bolts so you have one here and one in the back, and these are going to be 59 foot-pounds. And make sure you also do the bolt on the top of those mounts as well. Over here on the driver's side, the transmission mount, you have 2 bolts up top and then 2 nuts on the bottom. All 4 of those need to be torqued at 37 foot-pounds. Now that we got the subframe and the transmission and everything in there bolted down, don't forget to reinstall this filler tube. So all you need to do is just make sure that gets firmly pressed all the way down, then take that 10 mil bolt and tighten that up. Now we're ready to tighten up the flex plate to the torque converter. And what you want to do here is first make sure you clean off your threads, and we're going to put a little blue thread lock on here. Then we're going to install this one here. We're not going to fully tighten it down yet. We're going to rotate the engine over there clockwise just like we did on our removal video, and we're going to get them all first fully seated in there. Then we're going to go through and we're going to torque all of those to 47 foot-pounds. Now that we have all three hand tightened in there, now we're going to torque them to spec, which again is going to be 47 foot-pounds. Alright, so there was the 47, so then just keep rotating the engine and do the same thing on the other two. Then we're done with the torque converter. Then if you remove the starter, we'll go ahead and we'll set this back up in place. Now if you remember during the removal, it wasn't required to remove this, but when you're doing your torque converter bolts, get those torque to spec, it's a lot easier just to get this out of the way. So we'll just go ahead and put this back up in place here and we'll tighten these bolts to 32 foot-pounds. And obviously make sure you reconnect your electrical connection on the end there as well. Alright, so there was the 32 foot-pounds. Then put this engine to transmission bracket up here, and this one's going to be 37 foot-pounds. Alright, so there was the 37 foot-pounds. Then the last thing, just reconnect that little cover down in here. So if you remember, there was just a piece here and a piece over here. Then it got snapped into this here as well. Moving on to the power steering rack and mounting it to the subframe here. So first, just remove your little temporary thing that you put on here to hold it. After you get both of those hands started, then we're going to torque these to 55 foot-pounds. Alright, so there was the 55. Next, rotate this little thing down here, holding down the power steering line. And put this push pin back in as well. Then reattach the heat shield up here, and it's just going to be a couple of those 10mm bolts. And over here on the side, you do have another one of those push pins that's going to go in on this heat shield. So just connect that in place, and you're going to tighten up the 10mm on this side and the 10mm on that side. Alright, so then just verify that that's on there tight, then we're done mounting the power steering rack. And while you're down here, you can go ahead and just reconnect some of these hoses or brake lines that you had to remove. So there's a couple here, we'll just snap these in place. Then we'll move on to the intermediate shaft. So to get the intermediate shaft connected to the power steering gear, all we need to do is just push the intermediate shaft down a little bit over top that area up there, and you notice that little notch there. You need to make sure the notch on the power steering gear is lined up to the intermediate shaft. Once it's lined up there, then we'll put our bolt in there and we'll tighten that to 33 foot-pounds. Once you get it pushed down far enough and you know you're in the right spot, when you see that little notch out on the power steering rack, just make sure that lines up with our hole here on our intermediate shaft. Then we'll go ahead and we'll thread this bolt in. Alright, so there was the 33 foot-pounds. Then the last thing, just pull that boot back down. We'll remove our steering wheel lock tool. Moving on to the drive shaft, so starting over here on the driver's side, we'll first connect this power steering line to the subframe over here. Then we'll take our drive shaft and we'll gently pry the steering knuckle out of the way. And you want to make sure you get this in here square, because if you don't, you can damage those splines on the transmission. Just verify it's locked in place and it won't pull out. And we'll put the other end over here through our wheel bearing. Then we'll go ahead and we'll snap in our ball joint on the bottom as well. And I did just disconnect this a minute ago just to give a little bit more room to record that. So if you did disconnect your tie rod, make sure you put that back in place as well. And then the torque on these, so on the axle bolt, just again, make sure you put your screwdriver in there to lock that in place. And you're going to tighten this up to 118 foot-pounds. The ball joint nut underneath, you're going to tighten that to 22 foot-pounds plus 220 degrees. Then the stabilizer link, it's going to be 11 foot-pounds. Alright, so then once you get all those tightened up, do the same thing on the other side. Next, we're going to connect the cooler lines on the bottom of the transmission. Just make sure you first put your locking ring in there. And just make sure you hear both of them click in place. And then take your cooler lines and also make sure you hear those snap in place as well. And once it's in there, you shouldn't be able to pull it straight out. Do the same thing on this other one. And finally, take these two little black caps, and then you're done with the transmission cooler lines. Next, connect the brake booster bracket here to the subframe. So you got 2 bolts on the bottom here, then there's 1 more on the top. Then also snap in these brake lines on the sides to the frame. Then do the same thing over there on the passenger side. Then also go through and then connect the power steering lines to the subframe. And I did do the transmission one over here on the side earlier. If you didn't, make sure you get that one. We'll do this one, then there's one over there on the passenger side. And just do one final check around your subframe to make sure you got all the hoses and the brake lines connected. Moving on to some of the electrical connections. So first over here on the passenger side, this speed sensor. Then also just connect this little bracket here, holding this other wire. Then connect the main connection here and just make sure you hear it snap in place. Then connect your ground, so you can have one right here, then there's 2 on the back of the transmission. Then take the shift lever bracket And we'll pop that in place while we're back there. Then we'll also tighten down this bracket. And just make sure it's fully seated where it won't easily pull up like that. Then also connect your bracket here. See, it's just held on by two 13mm nuts on the side of the transmission. Then we'll put the air filter box back in place. And it should just snap into those pieces on the side. Then put your computer back in here. Just make sure you get that fully seated in there so it's not pinched. And once that's sitting in there, then we'll put the rest of the box in. And finally put your air cleaner in here. Looks like somebody did strip out these bolts here, so we'll have to replace those with something different. And then we'll reconnect our mass airflow sensor, this vacuum hose, and finally reconnect the throttle body hose up here. And reconnect our engine cover. Then the last couple of things, just reattach the plastic liners that go on both wheel wells, that plastic underguard here as well. Connect your battery, and then put your tires on here, and then you completed your job. Alright, well hopefully this video helped you out. If you're curious on what you had to do to install one of these GM 4T65-E transmissions, now I know this might seem like an intimidating job, not only from the removal that we did in the previous video, and also the install, because we have to mess with that subframe. But as you saw in this video, it's really not that hard. Just pay attention to some of the pointers that I mentioned throughout the video, and I guarantee you get the job done just like we did here today. So hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, please give me the thumbs up. If you're interested in more content like this, please hit that subscribe. But again, I hope this helped you out, and thanks for watching.